Hey guys, how's it going? I'm sitting here in my empty office that's still locked down, but I come here to get a little bit of my work done because it's quieter than being at home with the kids. But Pastor Ryan asked me to share some things that God has been speaking to me during this time, and that's what I'd like to do. And one of the things that God has really been teaching me about through all of this is the idea of sacrifice and what sacrifice means and what sacrifices are. And I think a lot of times we think about sacrifice as giving up something, which it is, giving up something that is important to us, or doing something that is painful, doing something that is selfless. Right now, many of us who are not sick are sacrificing our ability to go out and about, our ability to gather on Sunday mornings, our ability to gather with friends and family. We're sacrificing that for the benefit of those who might become sick or those who might die if they were to get this virus. But in this time, one of the things that I have been doing with my family, with Jenna and the girls and William, is we have been reading our Bible out loud every day together. And we started at the beginning, actually a little bit before quarantine started, when school first stopped being a thing. And so when we had everyone home every day, we decided to start each day reading the Bible. And initially, we didn't put time limits on it. We didn't put chapters on it. We just were reading the Bible out loud. Started in Genesis 1, reading through the Bible. And as we've done that, God has been working in our hearts, working in all of our hearts. We've had huge breakthroughs, spontaneous prayer and praise moments. Every one of us has been impacted by that. But in reading through Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, and Job, we read through the entire history of creation through the exiles into Babylon and Assyria, and then the return of the people of God to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. And one of the things that is throughout all of that section of the Old Testament is this idea of making sacrifices to God. And the sacrifices in the Old Testament were literal sacrifices of grain and wine and lambs and goats and bulls and sheep and all of these things that are being brought to God. And what's interesting is, you read about these thousands and thousands of animals and hundreds of pounds of flour and grain and wine that were sacrificed to God. But as you read through that, you also learn that those sacrifices were given to the priests, and that the meat from many of those sacrifices were shared among the people as feasts. And so even though these people were bringing their sacrifices of their animals and their food and their drinks, they weren't wasting them. They were giving them back to God in thankfulness and in sacrifice to please God, to obey Him, to follow His commands for the forgiveness of sins. And the fruit of that was them being fed and them feasting together and them celebrating together. And one of the themes, especially now as we've entered into Psalms and Proverbs as a family, and we're reading through Psalms and Proverbs now, is that we bring a sacrifice of praise to God. And when we bring a sacrifice, we have dedicated as our family the first hour of every day to God as a sacrifice, as a thanksgiving sacrifice. A thank offering is what it's constantly referred to in the Bible. And so what we have done as a family is said, God gives us each day, right? Jesus taught us to pray, give us this day our daily bread. And each day, God gives us from his store of time a day, a handful of hours with which we can use. And the kids have schoolwork, and I have work that I need to do for my business, and Jenna has extra work because everyone's home and using the dishes and making messes and all of this sort of thing. And so we all have things we need to do with those hours. But we are taking that first hour of every day and saying, this hour, the first hour of every day, that's our first fruit. It's essentially the best hour that we have, because it's an hour that has not yet been demanded by anything else. It's an hour that has not yet had worry or planning, and it's an hour that it's the only hour of the day that is not off schedule because of everything else that has happened before it. It is the best hour of the day, and we are taking that best hour of the day and we're offering it as a sacrifice to God, a thanksgiving offering to God, thanking him for the day by giving back to him that first hour of the day. And that hour isn't wasted and unproductive. That hour has been spent in the Word and reading aloud to each other and discussing the truth of God. It's become the bread of life, like Ryan talked about on Sunday. Jesus says, man cannot live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And we're taking this time, we're taking this hour, and we're offering it to God as a sacrifice, but he's letting us feast in that hour. He's letting us feast in that moment and filling us and orienting our hearts and changing us around his word. Because of that sacrifice is resulting in a feast in our hearts and in our souls. And then we're really trying to say on Sundays, what does it look like to give that whole day to God in rest, to take that Sabbath? And we've really struggled with Sabbath and what does it look like to rest, especially when the days are so disorganized and unscheduled, and what does it look like not to be Pharisees, that we can do this, we can't do that, like setting a fence and a boundary and rules and saying we must follow these things or we're disobeying, but rather saying, how do we honor God? And one of the things that we're trying to do is just say, how do we work hard Monday through Saturday so that there aren't things left undone on Sunday, so that we can sit all day in the presence of God as a family and no one retreats to the news or to Facebook or to their room. No one listens to their own music. We listen to worship music together. No one goes and reads their own novel. We read something together as a family. No one goes and does their own art project off by themselves, but we play a game together or we do a puzzle together. No one goes into the kitchen and works on their own, but we cook together and we work together. And just having that day be a day that is dedicated as a day to soak in the presence of God. And what we've been praying this week is just that, not that those days would feel difficult, but that those days would be longed for, and that we would spend each day in the week working hard and longing for that day when we can just sit in the presence of God together. That's what we're hoping for. And it's difficult. And this last Sunday, we had just started really getting into the book of Psalms in our morning reading time. And this last Sunday, we were all struggling with different things. There's anxiety and fear from what's going on around us, fear of illness, broken hearts for those that are sick, but also fear of finances and I'm blessed to have a job that I can do most of from home, but we are running at about 60% of what we normally run at, because a lot of our role is, my role is meeting with people and, making additional sales and recommendations, or adding, people come in to review what they need for insurance, and usually in that there's a need or a hole that they don't have, and they'll increase. And so we're missing a lot of that. And then we're also a little anxious financially in all of this, because we can't see the real impact it'll have on our business yet, because no policies are being canceled during this shelter at home time. Our company has decided they won't cancel anyone because of non-payment, which is great. And I'm thankful that I have a company that's doing that. But at the same time, what that means is whenever that is lifted at the end of May, then all of those things get processed, and our business gets charged for all of those things that will happen. So we really don't know what's going to happen in June and July, and there's anxiety there and worry, and I have employees, and I'm trying to make sure that I try and protect them, and so those things weigh heavy on me. There's difficulties with our kids. They miss their friends. They're very good students in class, but some of them are struggling with the distance learning and feeling like grades are slipping. There's anxiety over the future and what that holds. Will they go back to school in the fall? And so Sunday, there was just a spirit in our home of mixed emotions. We were thankful to have this day of rest, and we are being blessed by what God is teaching us. We were also, experiencing what David expresses a lot in the Psalms, which is sometimes feeling distant from God, or feeling not even distant from God, but that like you're seeking his face and you're calling out to him and he's not answering you and holding back. And so one of the things that I asked our family to do on Sunday in the middle of the afternoon, we had gotten up, we read our Bible, we'd gone to church digitally, and we were sitting around in the afternoon, and there was just this spirit of mourning maybe. And so what we did was we read a couple of Psalms, and then I asked everyone to spend a few minutes in prayer, and then we wrote our own Psalms to God. We're supposed to sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, and we're supposed to sing a new song to our Lord. And some of us aren't musically gifted or vocally gifted, and so you may not be able to write a song, and so you think that only applies to when, Eric says, here's a new song for you to sing. But we can all write psalms. We can all write a cry to God from our heart. And so what I want to share with you, the last thing I want to share with you this morning, is I want to share with you the Psalms. I'm going to share with you 4 of the Psalms that came out of our time on Sunday. And I've been asked not to identify the authors with each Psalm, but, they're personal, and they're a cry out to God from where we were in that moment. But I think just like many of David's Psalms were personal cries out to God, that sometimes when you see what someone else is going through and they think it's deeply personal and deeply individual and just what they're working through, God reveals to us that many of us are feeling the same way or working through the same things. And so we can see that blessing in not even hearing everything's going to be all right in every refrain of every line, and sometimes going, I don't know if everything's going to be okay, but I trust in the Lord. And even in that I don't know, when people hear that others also don't know, God can use that to encourage their heart, or he can spark in you an encouragement of saying, no, I do know, and you can thank God that he has given you that. So I'm going to share some of these Psalms with you. Praise the Lord my God. He watches over me day and night. When I turn my face away, he turns on a light. How far beyond our understanding does he craft our way, setting the path so that we may follow. He leaves me gifts along the paths, clues to his great mystery, telling me to trust in him, trust that he will not lead the way to a cliff in the dark. Perhaps a beast will cross my way, but the Lord will hear my cries of help and come running back to me, taking my hand the rest of the way. I will never understand why the path is rock and grit rather than smooth, straight gold. But the Lord my God knows all, that I may trust in him through the end of this path. I love that one. I love them all. Why, God, can't I be with you in my thoughts? When I am silent, my mind wanders. When I am still, I am distracted. My mind works against my longing for your words. If you were the only voice I could hear, would it be silent? I yearn for the day when my head can rest and erase every distraction from you. I want to hear your plans for me, O Lord, but I cannot hear you. Is it you or is it me speaking? The harder I try, the further I slide down a hill. Help me to hear your voice, loud and clear. I am desperate for you, Lord. I come, I go, I stray. I follow, I believe, and I forget. The swinging is making me sick. The swaying is so frustrating. I am living for you today and insist on my own way tomorrow. Can you make it steady, Lord? Can you align my heart with your straight, narrow path and keep me on your route? To go from light to dark and back and forth is anguish. To waver and doubt is torture. Why must I continue to lean on my own understanding and depend on my own strength? I transgress, I repent, I seek, I find. I wander, then stray. I weep, I am held. I am secure, yet I wait for it to cycle again. O Lord my God, awake. Do not sleep, and in your rest forget me. I am languishing, O God. I am sinking in the quicksand of despair. I am fighting for you, O Lord. I am listening for your voice. I lie down at night and meditate on your love. I arise and turn my face to heaven. Why am I surrounded at every turn? Why do the same old dragons of anger and despair feed on me? Where is my help, O God? Where is my deliverance and my joy? You have called me to come out of my cave and step into your light and your goodness. But my feet stumble, my shins are bruised, and I fall onto my face. Come and meet me here. Come save me, O God. I am weak and must be carried like an infant. Cradle me in your arms and soothe my broken body. Mend my soul, and I will sing your praises. I hope you enjoyed those. I hope you're blessed by those. For me, to read those words of my teenage daughters and my wife and my 10-year-old daughter and my own cries out to God and to just see what God is doing in us, that even in those moments when it evokes a cry out to God, it is him leading us. Even in our darkest moments, instead of medicating with another television show or more snacks or just going to sleep and sleeping in, instead of escaping pain, if we turn and cry that pain out to God, even if there are no immediate answers, the act of crying out to God, the act of longing for God, it moves us to him. It changes our heart. It leads us in those paths of understanding. So as my family is walking through that in this time, we're praying for you and your families, and we're looking forward to the days when we can come together and cry out to God together, and He can heal us and make our paths straight. We love you guys. We miss you, and yeah, we look forward to gathering soon. God bless.